Good evening, everyone. I'd like to formally welcome everyone here tonight, including members of the gallery and press, to this council meeting. My name is Councillor Helena Kirby, and I am the Deputy Mayor of the Golden Plains Shire Council. The Mayor is unable to attend tonight, so I will be chairing the meeting. Tonight, this council meeting is taking place within the council chambers at the Golden Plains Shire Civic Centre in Bannockburn and is open to the public. This meeting is being live streamed in accordance with Council's governance rules, and I welcome any viewers joining us online. I have the discretion and authority to at any time direct the termination or interruption of the live streaming. Such direction will only be given in accordance with the governance rules. I will now recite the opening declaration on behalf of all councillors. We, the councillors of the Golden Plains Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interest of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance, so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of the Golden Plains Shire. The acknowledgement of country. Golden Plains Shire spans the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung and Eastern Maar people. We acknowledge them as the traditional owners and custodians. Council pays its respect to the Wadawurrung elders, past, present and emerging. Council also respects Eastern Maar elders, past, present and emerging. Council extends that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Golden Plains Shire. We will now move on to apologies and leave of absence. Mayor Gamble is an apology for tonight. Do we have any other apologies or requests for leave of absence? None, thank you. Confirmation of the minutes. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the scheduled meeting of Council held on the 7th of June 2022 as circulated. The minutes of the scheduled meeting of Council on the 24th of May 2022 have also been circulated to be confirmed. Do I have a mover to confirm the minutes of the 7th of June meeting and of the open part of the 24th May 2022 meeting? Do I have a move? Councillor Sharkey? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Getsom. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Conflicts of interest. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? Nil. Thank you, councillors. Public question time. No public questions have been submitted for this evening for tonight's meeting. The agenda. We will now move on to consider the formal agenda. There is one person who has registered to make a public submission tonight after the introduction of the report. I will ask that submitter to speak, which will be done virtually. I would like to remind the speaker of the speaking times allocated. Each presenter may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes, and I ask you to respect the time limit, please. To assist presenters with this, a timer will be displayed in front of me. One bell will sound when you are nearing the maximum time allowed, and 2 bells will sound when your time has expired. 2 minutes will then be allocated for councillors to ask questions of the presenter. I note that this is not a time for debate. Business reports for decision. Item 7.1, the Citizen Recognition Award. Thank you, Mr. Braslis.
Through you, councillors, tonight we have 2 individual residents that have been nominated and hopefully recognized for their hard work and effort as young persons in our community, and I hand it over to the Mayor to invite them up and provide the acknowledgement.
Golden Plains Shire is proud to recognise the fantastic achievements and contributions made by young people in the community. We are fortunate today to present 2 Citizen Recognition Awards, which includes a Certificate of Recognition to Ruby Flett and Lachlan Flett. Both Ruby and Lachlan are being recognised for their achievements in sport. Congratulations. Ruby is 11 years old, lives in Inverleigh and has been playing cricket for 5 years. Ruby was recently selected and competed in the team Vic 12 and Undergirls cricket men's team, merit team, sorry. Congratulations. Lachlan has been selected for the Australian team for the Inline Hockey Championships that is competing in the USA Championships in July 2022. Well done. Now, would either of you like to say something about what you're doing and how you're going to represent? No? Would you like to thank Mum and Dad? Yes?
Should.
Okay. Well, look, we as a council, we wish you all the best of luck in your endeavours for competing in both the Victorian and Australian Championships, and we hope you really, really succeed, and I know the whole Shire is behind you, so congratulations and well done. Item 7.2, the Delegates Report. Councillors, I'll ask for a mover and seconder of the recommendation, following which all councillors will be asked if they wish to speak to their attendances over the past month. The recommendation is that Council receive and note the Delegates Report for the past month. Are there any questions? Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Rowe. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the Delegates Report?
Look, not really. Whatever I've got written down there in my report, so I'll have no further to say.
Councillor Rowe. Councillor Cunningham.
Nothing else from me. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any councillor who would like to speak to the motion, to the report? Councillor Whitfield.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, apart from what's in the report of attending a few events, I thought I'd talk about the 2022 Rural and Regional Planning Conference at Torquay, which was a 2-day event that I attended. There was a presentation of an example of collaboration between planning departments of a metropolitan council and a rural council, Bringbank and East Gippsland. Bringbank staff worked remotely for East Gippsland, where workload, especially after or for bushfire recovery, remained high during the pandemic. Bringbank's workload had decreased, so capacity was available to help. The exposure between the growth areas and rural and regional planners allowed for information sharing and exposure to new controls and improving processes. Also, Surf Coast Shire presented on their current priorities and projects. I was actually quite impressed that they have mapped all of their home-based businesses across the Shire. Maybe something we could look into. Also, Natica Schmeder from the National Trust and Michelle Glynn from the Heritage Council of Victoria gave a report on the 2020 review the Heritage Council of Victoria completed of the protection and management of local heritage by Victorian councils. Pertinent for us as councillors from their talk was that the Heritage Victoria will soon be releasing a Heritage 101 pack for councils with an introduction being worked on for use in councillor induction training. Also, there was a presentation from Alex Pearce, a climate change policy advisor for the Insurance Council of Australia. The presentation was approaching ways to reduce the cost of insurance. The advisor was seeking that the building code be strengthened to enable buildings to resist flood. My thoughts would be don't allow buildings to be built in flood areas. The Insurance Council of Australia is also lobbying governments to invest in resilience infrastructure such as levees and breakwaters. The protection of environmental significant coastal areas had merit, but I personally would not see levees built around low-lying areas to enable development. There was a talk from Dr. Rowan Henry. He spoke on engagement with registered Aboriginal parties and traditional owner groups. He spoke of the need for councils to consult with RAPs and TOs even if a cultural heritage management plan is not required, and that planning decisions should incorporate values-based considerations. And there were a couple other speakers, but that was the most of it. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Is there any other councillors who would like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Sharkey.
That's a fantastic meeting there where you see all the Victorian councils come together, all the representatives there, and you sort of see that strategic push put by many different councils, and it's always quite interesting to see the sort of politics being played there, and the sort of the difference between the metro councils, growing councils like us, and rural councils. So it's quite an interesting day. It was probably the most exciting day that I've seen up at the MAB, because there was a lot of heated debate around a lot of the rule changes that created quite contentious discussion. So most of the voting that occurs there, most of the rules or most of the motions that are put forward tend to get up by more than 90% of the room. So there was some contentious voting there, and a good few of the votes sort of going 60-40 sort of thing. So so there's so interesting to go back and have a look at some of those councillors, and probably sort of say in the future if someone's free. I was up there by myself. If there was somebody else there for the day, it's a good day to go up and see that sort of heated debate and meet some fellow councillors around the region. Also attended the Library Board meeting this month, and they're very much in line with us in terms of budget conversations and budget restraints, and the usual conversation about not having enough money to be able to do the things that they do, and being challenged there, and that ongoing conversation about library users completely changing to a lot of people doing online now, and that post-COVID world that we're in now that has changed the dimensions of users. So some interesting conversations there, and stats and figures to come out in the future. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Getson.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor. I attended the Smythesdale Fire Brigade truck handover at Ross Creek with Mayor Gamble, and rehabilitation truck which has been put to use on many occasions. It's a great asset to the CFA in the northern part of the Shire, but it does go all over the state, so it does do that. Also attended the announcement by Louise Staley at Smythesdale of the bus services from Smythesdale to Ballarat, which would be a great asset to us up that end. Also the announcement by Sport and Rec Victoria at Linton, the Living Sculptures project at Linton as well. The farewell to the Aged Care and Disability Service at Bannockburn, which I must commend Stephen Sagona and can't think of her name. Susanna Burton, which they gave the staff a very warming and a great send-off and a great appreciation for what they've done for the Shire, for our community. Went to the Linton Men's Shed, which is open in Linton, which was a great event as well, attended by about 70 people, along with Deputy Mayor Kirby. Also, the Rodeo Equestrian Centre, I attended with Councillor Gamble. We had a guided tour. We were also able to help them remove a limb off the tree to safety for the riders. The Linton Historical Society last night I attended. We had Alice Knight, who's the brother of former Mayor Councillor Kevin Knight from Linton. She spoke in the chamber at Linton on the history of the Knight family and gave a great speech. There was 21 people on Zoom that tuned in from all over the state, and there was over 30 people in the chamber, so it was pretty packed. So, and we had a lovely supper after. So, thanks, Deputy Mayor Kirby.
Thank you, Councillor Getson. Is there any other councillors who would like to speak for or against the motion? If not, I will do my delegates' report. I attended the opening of the Inverleigh change rooms. On behalf of the Mayor, myself and councillors, we welcomed the Victorian Minister for Sport, the Honourable Ros Spence, who officially opened the new and upgraded change rooms. We were joined by the President David Haste and Member for Buninyong Michaela Settle. The $1.6 million project is a great asset for the Inverleigh community. I was at the opening of the Linton Men's Shed, and it was extremely well attended from the residents of Linton. Michaela Settle opened the shed alongside Frank Cleary and shed members. The shed has a wonderful new home which was purpose-built for their needs, with plenty of space to allow the group to grow and welcome new members. I also met with the Department of Transport, which was held virtually, while Mayor Gamble was in Canberra. Council continues to advocate for the residents in regards to safer crossings on rural roads. Some of the townships that we spoke about were Bannockburn, Teesdale, Inverleigh, and the 3 streetscape projects were high on the agenda. An announcement by Gail Turney and Christine Cousins regarding an announcement of the $1.1 million contribution towards the new female-friendly facilities at Bannockburn for new netball change rooms. Scott Penning, the President, welcomed the news as this would provide an opportunity for more locals to join their teams, while it would also encourage more women and girls to participate. Council also welcomes the news of 2 funding announcements of $650,000 being for the Tracks and Trails strategy and reconstruction of the Rokewood netball and tennis court upgrade. And lastly, I would also like to mention the farewell afternoon to the aged and disability family of our Shire. As Council is transitioning out of aged care and disability services, I would personally like to thank the staff for their professionalism and kind and thoughtful journeys that they have experienced along the way. Whether they have been in the job for 12 months or 30 to 40 years, your dedication to the aged and vulnerable has been a credit to you all. Some staff are retiring, which is well deserved. Some will have other jobs within Council, and some will go on to help with the new providers. On behalf of the Mayor, councillors and myself, we all say thank you. Councillor Rowe, is the mover. Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
No, nothing further. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.3, adoption of the Golden Plains Shire Council budget for 2022-23. I will ask the Acting Director tonight, Fiona Ray, if she would like to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This report seeks to formally adopt the 22-23 budget, incorporating the 22-23 rating fees and charges pursuant to Section 96 of the Local Government Act 2020. The draft budget has been prepared based on the adopted principles within the 21 to 25 council plan and financial plan within the framework of a 1.75% rate cap increase as mandated by the state government. After making the document available for public inspection and inviting submissions under Section 96 of the Local Government Act 2020, Council received a total of 5 submissions. A special meeting of Council was held on Tuesday the 7th of June to consider the submissions received. I would like to bring to attention changes between the budget placed on exhibition and this version of the budget for adoption, which include an additional $115,000 reduction in garbage costs to reflect the final curbside collection costs with a corresponding amendment to the garbage revenue. So that's relating to the final negotiations of that contract. An additional $519,000 in rate revenue from modelling using the certified stage 4 valuation data, and that has been used to reduce borrowings over the 4 years from 22-23 out to 25-26. That's resulted in our borrowings ratio reducing from 37.4% down to 13.1% in 25-26. The marginal drive profit on land sales has been revised to $3.1 million based on the sale of 6 lots, and we've had an additional $400,000 additional financial assistance grant as announced in May. We have also included workforce turnover ratios for our 21-22 forecast, our 22-23 budget and the 3 projected years. We have the budget attached as attachment 1, which includes the listing of fees and charges, and we also have the revenue and rating plan, which has been updated to include changes to the recent rating strategy. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Director, Acting Director, any questions, councillors? No. Councillor Rowe?
Got one there for you, Fiona. The 3 additional full-time employees, where will they be employed in the structure? Is it 1 outside and 2 inside?
Yes, 1 outside and 2 inside.
Thank you.
I might just add to that as well. I think the internal ones, one of them is in relation to the subdivision engineers, in trying to keep up with the amount of subdivisions we're having now, and our inability to keep up with the development side of things.
Any other questions, councillors? If not, we have a recommendation in front of us. Do I have a mover?
Madam Deputy Mayor, just wondering with this motion, that's recommendation that's put forward. There's 10 sections to that recommendation. I'm just wondering if we could separate that and just put item 6 to one side and then item number 6. Yep, sorry. Item number 6 to one side, and then put forward the motion of all of them, excluding that, and then have that as a separate motion.
I can't see any problems doing that. Do we need to vote on that to separate it? Yes, to separate the actual, not to separate. Yes.
Can I say clarification of that, the reasoning for that, is possible?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Sharkey, would you like to state why you'd like it separated?
There's 10 different recommendations here as a motion to speak to all of them, just to separate that one item.
Thank you very much. So, do we have a mover to the first motion? First recommendation? All items except for number 6. Councillor Whitfield. Just have to separate this. Councillor, do we have a seconder to the motion excluding item 6? Councillor Rowe. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm happy to move the recommendation minus point 6 as the motion, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, any time a budget comes in better than forecast is a great result, and we enter the 22-23 budget with a surplus of approximately 800k when it was expected to be a 412,000 deficit. This is still being finalised over the next few weeks as payables etc. come in, but the work during this year has enabled the 22-23 budget to predict a surplus of 100k, which is solid. In this budget there is 18.8 million set for capital works, and some notable projects are 500k for the Inverleigh car park and drainage works, 740,000 for the Meredith multi-play space, 800,000 for the Teesdale landfill rehabilitation, and 3.96 million for the Rokewood Community Hub and Pavilion upgrade. In the budget principles, it says that new revenue sources should be identified wherever possible. As we will hear later in tonight's agenda, the asset plan, item 7.7, reveals a significant shortfall or gap in the years ahead for what council should be spending on maintenance and renewal and what council is capable of spending. Being limited by a rate cap, which I think is a good thing for a shire like ours, there are only a few ways council can increase its budget to reduce that gap. Reduce spending in other areas, create profit through enterprise, such as the Lamandra Drive development that is being undertaken, or capture untapped income through avenues such as developer contribution plans or infrastructure contribution plans. It's the introduction of DCPs and ICPs that can strengthen our financial position, ensure assets are maintained to a higher standard, and provide the new infrastructure that our growing shire needs. The planning department have begun the initial stages of incorporating these plans into our planning scheme so that in years ahead our budget will be in an even stronger position. Looking at other parts of the budget, insurance costs to council could rise by up to 150k due to insurance going through what they call a hard market cycle. I think more of as cost recovery after a series of natural disasters, earthquakes, bushfires and floods, etc. Operating grants have decreased by 29%, partly due to the exit from aged care, and capital grants have decreased by 18.3%. This doesn't mean that the works team will deliver less. In fact, they have a full schedule. An example of how the less funding yet a full work schedule occurs is that council missed out on some bridge funding this year and black spot funding for the 22-23 year. But it's a 3-year rolling program, so there are still works going to occur in this area, and some bridge works are carrying over from last year's budget as the funding only recently arrived, so it was counted in the 21-22 budget. On a very positive note, loans will be reduced by 1.6 million in the 22-23 year, a significant reduction. And by 25-26, borrowings are projected to have 4.3 million outstanding from a starting position of 11.8 mil this year. That's 7.5 million of debt off the books in 4 to 5 years. That's a terrific forecast. The amount of borrowings expressed as a percentage of council's income will be at 37% for this year, which has greatly improved since we came on board at the council elections when it was 53.65%. The shift to lower debt ratios will position council well heading into times of greater inflation and higher interest rates. All in all, with a budget in surplus, good debt reduction, significant capital works projects scheduled, and as we'll see later, the council plan on track. Even though there will be challenges to overcome, it looks like we're heading into a good year. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, this budget aligns with the council plan and is all about balancing service demands and infrastructure with the capacity to pay. The total operating revenue, you've heard, is 53.3 million, operating expenditures 45.8 million, and an operating surplus of 7.5 million. The total capital works investment is 18.8 million. Of this 18.8 million, 6.77 million goes to asset renewal, being rural roads and bridges, 10.53 million into capital upgrades, and new assets of 1.5 million. We'd just also like to expand too on the forecast going forward in relation to interest-bearing loans and borrowings, and I think Councillor Whitfield's mentioned it before. The reduction forecast for the next 4 years is very, very promising. So that's about all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Is there any councillor who would like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Cunningham? Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kirby. Yes, Councillors Whitfield and Rowe have covered most of the points I had, but firstly, I'd just like to thank CO and council officers and the staff involved in the budget process. It's a very positive budget, I believe. As mentioned, significant reduction in debt, which is great. There's some really good positives in there. The waste management fee increase by $10 for residents. Capital works, as Councillor Rose mentioned, $8.8 million, with 6.7 of that directed towards maintenance of renewals and assets, which, as mentioned, is something that we really need to work on. And also some of the key projects, some of which Councillor Whitfield has already mentioned, but the local road resealing program, Inverleigh drainage and car park works, the Northern Streetscape Stage 1, Rokewood Community Centre and Linton Naval reconstruction. There's a lot going on throughout the Shire. It was also pleasing to see budget submissions. I think we received 5. There was some there from the Batesford residents asking for consideration to support community with applicable funding to undertake an update to the Batesford Township Structure Plan, and also to complete, hopefully, a detailed master plan design for delivery on natural environment improvement in new space. So overall, yeah, I'd agree. I think there should be some good acknowledgement of the work that's been done to present a positive budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak? Councillor Sharkey?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The Deputy Madam Mayor, sorry. Yeah, no, it's always an interesting process. The council budget, I think each year as a group we try to get our hands that little bit dirtier than the previous year as we learn as we go along. So it's going to be hopefully an interesting process for the next 12 months as well. So. Capital Works has clearly been identified by the previous speakers there, and with good reason there, as we see that shift towards maintenance and renewal. We have 1,744 kilometres of roads to cover, so when a lot of residents see these big numbers or a budget of $53.3 million, where does it go? It does seem like a significant amount of money, but you only have to pick up the Geelong Addy today to see Geelong's budget being sort of 10 times the size of our budget. So a significant amount of money is invested. So some really good projects there looking up for the next 12 months. I highlighted the Northern Streetscape there, Stage 1, which is something that a lot of residents will be happy to see coming forward. Just regarding the community engagement, it's quite an interesting process. I think this year we've gone out. We went out that little bit earlier this year. We asked residents I think in previous years, residents have come at the 11th hour, and our feedback to residents has been, look, you've come too late in the process. We need to hear from you sooner to be able to adapt some of those wishes into the budget. So we went out earlier this year. I think we would be fairly disappointed with the feedback that we. Not the feedback, rather the number of people that we had from the community. I'd love to see tens of people rather than sort of singles of people coming forward. 5 submissions has been put forward, which is good. So it's but you'd love to be getting that greater feedback. But as we will see in one of the future items here tonight, we went out to residents and asked them the question, what would you like to change on the budget, or what do you think we could do to save? 66% of people have said they've got no idea. So it's that engagement, that process. It would be good to see more sort of community groups and collective groups of people putting in submissions. And you know, if we were to take away the same usual people that we have each year making submissions, it's very small numbers. So it's that community engagement would be good. It would be remiss of us as a group not to highlight our councillor wages this year as well, been legislated there, and seeing a 24% increase to councillors, 100% to deputy, and 38% to the mayor. So hopefully with that shows some changing of times and more investment of time, and different people are applying into the future and things like that. So there's a lot to take out of this budget, a lot of pros, and it's a $53.3 million. So you would be there's a few things in there which I'm sure would like to individually change, but as a collective group, it's an improvement on last year's budget. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey.
Deputy Mayor.
Is there any other councillors who'd like to speak for or against? No? If not, I'll ask Councillor Whitfield if he'd like to close that debate.
Briefly, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, it was pleasing to see the submissions that Councillor Sharkey talked about. Some of those have actually been incorporated in the budget. And we did go out, I think, in March for consultation about the budget, which was a much better way than the previous years. It also just echo Councillor Cunningham. The budget is a major piece of work. So behind the scenes, the staff have done a good job, particularly in the last few weeks, in finding ways to reduce debt going forward. A great effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. So I'll now put the motion. All those in favour of all of them excluding item 6. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now go back to, do I have a mover for item 6? Do I have a mover for item 6? If there's no mover, it will lapse.
Yeah, I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Do I have a seconder for item 6? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to item 6?
Sure. You've caught me on the fly by separating these things, but happy to move item 6 as the motion. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Cunningham.
Can I reserve my right to chat later?
You may
Thank
reserve
you.
your right.
Thank
you. Is there any councillor who'd like to speak against the motion? Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just I suppose the reason and rationale for myself asking to remove items point 6, it does make it quite difficult for me. Whilst I fully support the budget, the work that's done in there, as I said, there's always some things in a budget you can criticise and pick on. But with that one on the rating strategy, it is something that I have personally expressed my frustration with, or been against the rating strategy in which we've gone through. So being able to separate them means that I can vote against this item but support the budget there. I do think the rating strategy is going to greatly affect a significant amount of residents this year. It's modelled there, which we've only just received today, that potentially 250 residents are going to experience rate shock like we've never seen rate shock before. So there was items that I put forward this year, and whilst we appreciate the budget is in a good shape, we've got underlining surplus, there's been profits in areas there. I think there's some things that we could have done to help with that rate shock that I felt. Last year there was a significant amount of Batesford residents that were hurt with rate shock. There's going to be ratepayers this year. Can we do something for that small number of people each year? I believe there is. It's going to come at a cost to the budget. Potholes outside people's houses come at a cost, and in my personal opinion, rate shock in our Shire is a lot higher than many other rateable councils. And I suppose my separation tonight is just a protest vote on item number 6. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak on item 6? If there is no... Councillor Rowe?
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Madam Mayor. Look, listen, I'd just like to say a few words. I've just got notice recently of the huge increases in farm values, some of them up to 51% higher. I just think maybe going forward, the rating differentials and charges may need looking at after the rollout of the rate notices in August. I know it won't affect this budget for 22-23. However, it may be of interest to just go back and review these if we can down the track. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for or against? If not, I'll ask Councillor Cunningham if he would like to speak. Thank you.
Gary. Yeah, I'm on the other side of the fence from Councillor Sharkey. I believe the rating strategy that we did introduce is a more fair and equitable rating strategy. It sees the missable charge reduced by $60 per property. From what I've seen from the modelling, I think it's going to be a fairer and more equitable scheme that's put in. I also agree with Councillor Rowe. At the end of the 12 months, we can revisit it, but I think we need to see and wait to see how the rate notices goes out to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. And Councillor Whitfield, would you like to sum up?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. And I do appreciate Councillor Sharkey's and Councillor Rowe's sentiments on the matter. Yes, it is possible to call for a review of the strategy down the track. But while the rating strategy is integral to this year's budget, the configuration of the strategy was adopted some time ago now. I'm more than supportive of continued lobbying to the state government around the inadequacies of the current system, which Councillor Sharkey points out, which allow for rate shock. But the stage 4 valuations coming in are actually looking like they will validate the strategy that this council has adopted. So it looks like out of 12,000 properties, only 250 will have an increase in rates, which under the constraints of the state system would seem a very good result. So thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. I will now put the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you.
For the division, thanks, Madam.
Yes, we may. Councillor Cunningham has called for a division. All those in favour? Councillor Getson, Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Cunningham and Councillor Kirby. All those against? Councillor Sharkey and Councillor Rowe. Thank you. Just regarding the budget, I'd like to thank the councillors for adopting the budget tonight, the 2022-23 budget. It details council's financial situation and budget commitments for the next financial year. The budget has been formulated with a series of workshops and community engagements, and we thank all the residents who engaged with the councillor group. Under the rate cap of 1.75%, council will continue to operate more than 60 valuable services for our residents and to maintain and manage our assets and infrastructure needs across the Shire. This has been a good reflection by making sure that the engagement session started earlier when the budget was being developed, and we would like to acknowledge the staff for this being achieved in a smooth and orderly process. So thank you, and we look forward to the budget starting shortly again after this one has now been adopted. Thank you. Item 7.4, Community Strengthening Grants Round 1 for 2022. I'll ask Director Stephen Sigona to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So the purpose of this report is for Council to note and acknowledge the 17 projects that are to be funded through Council's Community Strengthening Grants program for Round 1 of 2022. The 17 successful projects will be awarded, to use round numbers, $78,000 in funding across the 4 grant streams. So they are $15,000 under the Community Safety stream, $35,000 under the Creative Community stream, $14,000 under the Environment and Sustainability stream, and $13,000 under the Healthy Active Living stream. Council's contribution of $78,346 will deliver some $234,000 in total value, and volunteer hours at around 1,700 across the 17 projects. I would just add that the second part of the recommendation also proposes that the 3 projects undertaken as part of Council's 2022 Community Leadership Program have an increase in their allocated seed funding from 500 to 2,500, essentially funded from some underspend in the current year of the community grants budget, and therefore not impacting at all the ability to fund future projects through 2022-23.
Thank you, Director Sigona. Is there any questions, councillors? Okay, if there's no questions, do I have a mover for the councillors, the officer's recommendation? Councillor Sharkey and Councillor Getson to second it. Thank you. Councillor Sharkey, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. This is one of the most exciting strengthening grants rounds that has come to us. We've seen the strength of how important and how pivotal this is to our communities. This budget allocation each year of 150,000, isn't it? And then each year. So over, I suppose, my journey on council, we've seen it sort of weaken a little bit during sort of probably 3 years ago, 3 years ago. We've seen it weaken. We've seen not as many community groups actively getting involved in the process. A lot of one of the standout things for me this time, and behind behind closed doors at our briefing, we had a really good discussion around all of these items and how there was some really good debate amongst us as councillors scrutinising each one, and Madam Deputy Mayor made some good questions around one of the allocations there. We scrutinised that. We asked some really good questions, and really valid questions came out of that. But for me, the big take-home on this one is that we're talking thousands of dollars, thousands and thousands of dollars to each item, so 10,000, 5,000, 7,000. Previous to that, we were talking hundreds of dollars. So a club getting $300 to fix a fridge and bits and pieces. Whilst it was very tokenistic and that, but these are genuine items that make a genuine change to a club getting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. It makes a significant change and helps with helps our bottom line as well, seeing good investment in good clubs. So I'm really proud of this one. It's without doubt the best allocation of funds that I've seen in my time on council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Councillor Getson.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor Sharkey's remarks there. These grants, they really put these little different groups in the playing space. If they didn't have these grants, they wouldn't be where they're getting to nowadays. And looking through the different types of grant applications and the receivers of them, it's a varied one over scattered many different aspects of the Shire, and I think it's a great result for the community.
Councillor Getson. All right, what we will now do is we will go through and we will announce the recipients of the grants. So I will start off first of all. Council's community strengthening grants are a valuable source of financial support for local events, projects and programs in our Golden Plains Shire communities. Applications for round 1 of this year's program were open during April and were available in 4 streams: environment and sustainability, community safety, creative communities and healthy and active living. Council is thrilled that the 17 community projects will share in $78,346 of funding from this grant program. We've invited each of these community groups to be here in person or watch on through the live stream, as our council group has the honour of announcing the successful projects. Councillor Getson, would you like to talk about the ones that you have in front of you? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yes, I'm pleased to announce the Environment and Sustainability Grants. The Environment and Sustainability Grants scheme offers from grants to assist groups, organisations and individuals to undertake environmental and sustainability projects within Golden Plains Shire. 4 Environment and Sustainability Grants have been awarded to. Number 1 is the bridge over the creek at Ross Creek Reserve. The Ross Creek Landcare Group will construct a new bridge to provide all-weather access to the northern section of the Ross Creek Reserve. Council is contributing $5,500 to the project, which will allow access for small maintenance vehicles and recreational access for wheelchair users and children in prams. Number 2 is the Inaugural Golf Club Chipper project. The Inaugural Golf Club has been successful in securing $3,100 to purchase a mobile chipper machine. The new chipper will assist with the cleaning up of dead and fallen branches and converting waste into mulch. The third one is the Wildlife Hollows and Nesting Box Building Workshops project. Council is pleased to award the Geelong Landcare Network Incorporated a $3,500 grant to run 2 wildlife nesting box workshops in Bannockburn, Inverleigh and Teesdale. The workshops will provide residents with the opportunity to build their own nesting box and take it home to install at their property, providing a home for a variety of woodland animals. Number 4 and the last one for me is Smythesdale-Wodiallic River Community Project. Council will contribute $2,294 to the Friends of the Wodie Landcare Group's project, which will create a new land care group in the upper catchment of the Wodiallic River. The new group will initially undertake rehabilitation work on an area of the river in Smythesdale. Thank you, Deputy Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Getson. Councillor Clayton Whitfield.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm reading out the ones about the Healthy Active Living grants. These grants are available to assist groups and organisations to undertake sport, recreation, health and wellbeing projects that directly benefit the Golden Plains Shire community. 4 projects received Round 1 Healthy Active Living grants. The first being Blue Collar, White Collar, High-Vis Meals. Haddon Community Learning Centre Incorporated have been successful in securing a grant to provide a series of workshops that will teach participants how to plan, prepare and produce healthy meals for work. Council is proud to support the Haddon Community Learning Centre with $4,480 towards the project. Ross Creek Social Pickleball. The Ross Creek Tennis Club seeks to purchase 2 additional pickleball nets to accommodate the rising demand for the game in the local community. The new equipment will allow residents of all ages to be more active by participating in pickleball. Council is excited to fund this project to the value of $3,120. Bannockburn Inclusive Werribee Zoo outing. Council is pleased to award Bannockburn Inclusive a $2,645 community strengthening grant to hold an excursion to the Werribee Open Range Zoo. The excursion will provide a much needed outing for participants, helping to increase social connectedness and reduce feelings of loneliness and isolation. The last one in this category is Journal to the Self program. Golden Plains Arts Incorporated have been successful in securing a $2,900 community strengthening grant to deliver its Journal to the Self program, a 4-part writing program for people from all backgrounds and of all experience levels to be held at the Dereel Community Centre. Congratulations to those.
Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much. Creative Community Grants assist groups to undertake arts and culture projects within Golden Plains Shire. 6 groups there, 3 of which was Council has contributed $7,000 towards the Live at Turtle Bend, which is a festival coordinated by the Turtle Bend Committee. Live at Turtle Bend aims to bring the community together through music, cultural performances and unique lantern parade, and is supported by volunteers from community groups. The Inverleigh Historical Society has been awarded $5,416 to the Community Strengthening Grant to deliver the Inverleigh Community Stories project. This project will engage a diverse range of community members to share their stories and knowledge of Inverleigh to create videos that can be shared now and into the future. Wallenduck Community Group has been successful with a grant of $4,950 for the installation of the Wallenduck Welcome Rock sculpture. This sculpture will showcase and promote Wallenduck whilst also helping to strengthen the community by providing a focal point to be used for meetings and events.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Mayor. The Smythesdale Eagle Tree Project. The Smythesdale Progress Association has been successful in securing a $1,000 community strengthening grant for its Eagle Tree project. The project will provide additional art pieces to the Eagle Tree, enhancing the local recreation area for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. Echoing Landscape, a creative learning experience. Golden Plains Arts Inclusive Echoing Landscape project will offer quality creative events, workshops, demonstrations, artist talks and panel discussions. The timetable of planned and informal drop-in sessions will promote connection, new ideas and collaboration. Council is pleased to provide $7,167 to the Golden Plains Arts Inclusive to deliver the project. Restoration of the Linton Library Stage 2. Council is pleased to support the Linton and District Historical Society Inclusive to undertake Part 2 of its restoration of Linton's 1874 library. Council is contributing $10,000 towards the project, which will rebuild the chimney of the building and will be another step towards the full restoration of the historic library. Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham.
Madam Chair, first of all, just to also acknowledge the work of the council officers and staff involved in the process. These grants are the successful groups under the community safety grants. Community safety grants are available to assist groups to undertake projects within the Shire which increase communities' capacity, resilience and connection to plan for, rebuild and recover from emergencies and ongoing risks. In round one of the 2022 program, councils award community safety grants to 3 organisations, being Heating of Napoleon's Hall project. Council is proud to award $7,628 community strengthened grant to the Napoleon's Memorial Hall Committee Limited for heating at the hall. The project will decommission and replace 3 current gas heaters that are no longer safe and usable, permitting the ongoing use of a hall during winter. A small-scale country market equipment upgrade. The Wadi Alec Historical Society has been successful in securing a community safety strengthening grant for the amount of $2,645 to the group for the purchase of a marquee and other market equipment. The new equipment will support the small-scale country market to grow and generate income. Lastly, which is going to be a great event, the Great Vic Bike Ride 2022 and 2022 Bicycle Networks Incorporated Great Vic Bike Ride will assist Golden Plains Shire with participants staying overnight in Inverleigh. Council is pleased to provide $5,000 to the network to support this event's overnight stay in the Shire. Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham. Okay, as everyone has spoken to the motion, Councillor Sharkey, would you like to close? You're happy? Okay. All right, I will put the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We now move to item 7.5, the Community Satisfaction Survey 2022 report findings. Thank you, Director Sigona.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So each year, Local Government Victoria coordinates a statewide local government community satisfaction survey for participating councils across the state. In conducting the survey for Golden Plains, the independent research company, JWS Research, conducted telephone interviews with 400 Golden Plains Shire residents and has reported its findings to Council, and the full report is included with the agenda. Just a couple of very high-level takeouts. So firstly, overall, community perceptions of Council's performance have either, in general, improved or remained steady. We've got some positive movement in index scores recorded for categories around customer service, value for money, waste management, lobbying on behalf of the community, decisions made in the interests of community and in consultation and engagement. And these compare rather favourably with the trend of both the large rural and also the all Victorian councils groups, which have tended to trend downward in all of those categories, whereas we have Golden Plains has either remained steady or in fact in most cases seen a bit of an increase in favourability of community perception there. As we've previously discussed, the two areas where community perception has fallen is around sealed roads and sealed local roads and unsealed local roads. Look, for what it's worth, those declines are consistent again with the trend that was experienced across the large rural councils group and all Victorian councils, which also saw a similar decline in community perception around roads. I might leave it there. So the recommendation is essentially that Council notes the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey report and results.
Sigona. Mr. CEO.
Sorry, councillors, I just wanted to add, the customer or community satisfaction surveys have been going for a number of years, and it is a really good litmus test of what or how communities feel across Victoria. And there are always discussion and debate of, you know, does the 400 people, our residents of our community, accurately reflect? And there, I could argue both for and against that statement, but at the end of the day, this is the qualitative data that we do use to help benchmark ourselves and guide us into trying to make a difference or improve the level of service. I do think we should acknowledge that over the last 5 years, if we look at our particular data, each and every year over that 5-year period, we've made slow and steady improvements. But we've got a long way to go, especially in the area of roads. And I think if we did the comparison against our peri-urban partners around Victoria, we would find that we're all in a very similar boat in that we've got a large number of rural roads, we've got a large road network generally, and we've got growing demands and expectation of the new residents that are coming to our communities. So it's always going to be a challenge. But I do want to reflect on page 30 on the council report that we do need to look at the results in a positive light. If you, as Director Sigona has made mention, if you do compare what has happened across the large rurals in Victoria, that's 19 councils, and what's happened with the statewide average being 79 councils, in every category in those two groups, they've gone down, and they've gone down significantly in some of them. And for the most part, ours, out of them, there's more positives than there is anything else. So that means we bucked the statewide trends. I'm not suggesting that we don't have room to improve, but I'd just like to acknowledge in a really tough year, COVID environment, everything else, if we do compare us like to like with the large rurals, we've done well. I'm not saying we can't do better. All I'm saying is in a real tough year. So I think as an organization, and I'll be saying this to our staff tomorrow, is that we do need to look at the hard work and effort has paid off in the majority of areas, but we all acknowledge that if we had additional monies, one, we pay off debt, and two, we put to road improvements, right? And those are the things we'll continue to do in the years to come.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Any questions for Director Sigona, councillors? No questions? Okay. Do I have a mover for the recommendation before us that council receive and note the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey reports for Golden Plain Shire Council? Councillor Whitfield, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I move council receive and note the 2022 Community Satisfaction Survey reports for the Golden Plain Shire. This data does go towards fulfilling some of our statutory reporting requirements, so it's valid there. Look, I've looked at the survey and I've taken some areas to highlight, which I'll just go through. So we've already heard mention of unsealed and sealed roads were the service area that dropped significantly from the last survey. The works team has done considerable work on our roads, but for one reason or another, it's not translating to the community. And I asked the question, are the roads better though the perception is not there? The money budgeted and spent on roads renewal and maintenance has slowly increased over the last few years. But interestingly, the satisfaction level on sealed and unsealed roads has dropped for the whole large rural council sector across the state. There has been a concerted effort to improve consultation and engagement, and while the result remains steady this year, I hope the efforts are reflected in the next survey. The customer service result was improved, has improved 2 points, and it is this area that topped the best things about council question. Feedback on the value for money index rose 2 points, and while in itself it has a rating of 42, which is low, it is heading in the right direction. Respondents indicate that the direction council is taking is an improvement on previous years. Council's performance in lobbying has had a small improvement in the eyes of residents, which is good, because I've seen the efforts made in this area by the CEO and Mayor through the federal election, and that work continues towards the state election. Across the state, most other councils experienced a significant drop in results, so our result in comparison of being on par or above in all areas except the roads is quite positive. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Cunningham.
Chair. Lots of positives in the community section survey. There's, as CEO Breslers has said, there's some areas that we need to improve on, and this type of satisfaction, the survey gives us feedback and information where we can direct areas that we need to address. But I think there's a lot of positives in this satisfaction survey. The community perception, most of it is what Councillor Whitfield's already mentioned, is Council's performance has continued to improve from 2021. Positive movement in the index scores, results of value for money, customer service, which is great, waste management, lobbying on behalf of the community, decisions made in the interest of the community, and consultation engagement. It needs to be acknowledged that this group of councillors have undertaken more face-to-face community consultation posts and meetings than any other previous council, so we're out there talking and listening to the community. There was a commitment made at the last council election, and the newly elected councillors are delivering on this promise, and the commitment will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Is there any councillor who would like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much. I have spoken about in previous years on this survey, and as the CEO noted there that there's an argument for and against, and I'm very much on the against on this survey. This is a $25,000 survey, so we as ratepayers pay $25,000, and as Councillor Whitfield said, it's legislated. It's something we have to do to tick the boxes. But let's be brutally honest here. These figures and numbers that come to us each year, they're no shock or surprise to us. We know by the phone calls we get from residents that roads are an issue. The 1,744 kilometres that we have to maintain, they will be forever an issue, and an area that we will try to do. And you know, we each and every year we commit to this, and we see the numbers go up and down. It's quite interesting when you look at the set of data and figures that are there. I broke them down into a four-year cycle over a council cycle, year 1, year 2, year 3 and year 4. And it's quite interesting to see how that wave of community feedback comes over that 4-year journey. We as councillors make some tough decisions, year 3, year 2, year 3, and you sort of see those numbers going there. But to go out to a community, ask 400 people, and for a private firm to get 400 people, I have to ring 600 or 700 or 800 people at dinner time. Most people will stay on the phone and answer those surveys, come off a negative base that if you're happy with and you're content, most people have got more time to sit down with the kids and have dinner rather than take part in a survey like this. But to see lobbying move from 50 to 51, when we've just gone through the last 12 months, gone through an election and absolutely smashed out of the park the election commitments and promises, that's something that should have moved from 50 to 80. We know that as a group here. It's just getting it from a survey. It's, I don't know, each year I open up this and it comes as no surprise. Roads, lobbying and that. So it's, in my opinion, I'd love to spend that $25,000 on potholes for the community rather than get a feedback on a survey of a survey. We know this. We know the answers to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Is there any... Councillor Rowe, you were next. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Deputy Madam Mayor. Look, listen, all I see it differently. I know that. And the overall performance index for the Golden Plains Shire, not just for 1 or 2 issues, but overall, across all responsible areas, hasn't really shifted in the last 5 years. However, the biggest disappointment for me is the sealed local roads and unsealed roads, which satisfaction has deteriorated considerably. I am just wondering, as a council, whether we should have a look at our road charter and maybe tweak our intervention levels to do better in the sealed and gravel road areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Getson.
Yes, I'd like to support Councillor Rowe's remarks there on that. Our roads are pretty poor, as everybody knows, and I realise it's been very wet, but I think we need to lift our game and get onto our local roads, and we'd save a lot of complaints. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Getson. Mover, would you like to close the debate, Councillor Whitfield?
No, nothing further to add, thanks.
Thank you. I will then put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Just following on from the community satisfaction results, as a council we've been very proactive in this space. With the use of better materials on our roads, it is still disappointing to see that we have fared very low on this item, once again in this community survey. This will be a high priority, I'm sure, for us all going forward for the next budget and our strategic planning. So I'm hoping that this will be high on our agenda, because this is what we're hearing back from the community, that this is what they'd like to see, a bigger improvement on our roads. So I'm sure it will be on top of our agenda, councillors. Thank you. Item 7.7. Item 7.6, the Council Plan 2021 to 2025 implementation, Quarter 3. Thank you, Acting Director Fiona Ray.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This report is to update Council on the progress made in actioning the Council Plan 21 to 25 for Q3, for Quarter 3. There is a report attached as well, updating the status of the implementation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? If there's no questions, we have a recommendation before us that Council note the report and implementation of the actions contained in the Council Plan 2021 to 2025 for Quarter 3 from the 1st of January 2022 through to the 31st of March 2022. Does any councillor wish to move the officer recommendation? Do I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll move that Council note the report and implementation of the actions contained in the Council Plan 2021 to 2025 for Quarter 3 from 1st of January 2022 to 31st of March 2022. Look, from looking over this report, the Council Plan implementation is well on track. I've picked out a few areas to highlight, but there are many more. Under the pillar of community, there's been great progress in the area of health and wellbeing, with the Municipal Health and Wellbeing Action Plan implemented and a whole range of programs underway. Likewise, the engagement of community stakeholders to prepare for and recover from natural disasters like floods and fire has strong progress, as does the Reconciliation Action Plan. The Arts and Culture and Heritage Strategy has been adopted and is being implemented. In fact, under almost all of the actions under the community pillar, significant progress has been made after only 12 months. Under livability, the transport trial's been completed. There's been continued advocacy and planning for a variety of living options, including the provision of affordable and social housing, which is actually yet to begin, but it's tied to the settlement strategy, which is being worked on. Social infrastructure planning is underway with the Shire-wide Development Contribution Scoping Study paper that was presented to Council at last week's briefing. In the sustainability pillar, progress has started in the clean green technology area with a feasibility study for an electric vehicle station at Meredith. Initial work has begun on the protection of waterways and sustainable water use, with council being successful with a grant to develop the Bannockburn Integrated Water Management Plan. Under prosperity, the 3-year-old funded kinder placements have been implemented, and planning for infrastructure to support the increased placements is underway. Something I'm really pleased about is partnerships with TAFE and higher education providers to service the Golden Plains Shire community have begun, with officers working on wind farm technician and apprenticeship training programs with Federation University. Under leadership, significant progress in the areas of customer service, communication and engagement with the community has been made. A mountain of work has been done improving governance through the implementation of the 2020 Local Government Act and the ongoing review of policies. Look, we set a demanding council plan, and I believe the staff are rising to the challenge. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Cunningham.
I think Councillor Whitfield's covered everything there, and a very good review, so nothing else to add. Thank you.
Is there any councillor who'd like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? I'll ask Councillor Whitfield if you'd like to close the debate. All right, I will then put the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.7, the asset plan adoption. I'll pass this on to Director Josipovic. Thank you.
Madam Deputy Mayor. The Local Government Act of 2020 requires councils to prepare an asset plan for a period of the next 10 financial years. The inaugural asset plan is required to be adopted by council by the 30th of June of this year. The asset plan was placed on public exhibition for a 3-week period from 27th of April in accordance with requirements of Section 92 of the Local Government Act, and 2 submissions were received. Neither submission was seeking amendments to the plan. Rather, one reported maintenance issues, which we have since logged on our customer request management system, and the other submission congratulated council on the plan. The plan has undergone some minor editing changes since the plan was out for consultation. However, these changes have no impact on the content or wording of the plan. The asset plan, as attached to your report, can now be adopted, and the recommendation is there on screen before you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor, sorry.
Is there any questions, councillors? No? Well, as this item is for adoption, having been out for public exhibition, I will take the report in the agenda for this item as read, and unless there are no questions, I will proceed to ask for a mover to the officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rowe. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the officer's recommendation?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I move the recommendation as the motion. Look, this is a terrific document. It's a requirement of the 2020 Local Government Act. Again, they require a lot, that lot. The purpose of the asset plan 2022 to 2032 is to, amongst other things, show how council will responsibly manage its assets to meet the service delivery needs of the Golden Plains community into the future in a cost-effective way. The asset plan includes infrastructure such as sealed roads, car parks, curb and channel, gravel roads, unsealed roads, bridges, footpaths and trails, buildings, drains and open space assets. This plan sets out in a thorough and methodical way how council over the next 10 years will strategically plan and act to ensure its assets are managed to provide the facilities and network of assets that our community deserves. It also sensibly considers the financial implications and considers how the council budget is intrinsically tied to asset management. The data in the plan indicates a gap in what council should be spending on assets compared to what council can spend on assets of $84.7 million over 10 years. That's a bit over 8 million shortfall each year. The plan mentions ways to mitigate this by continuing to apply for federal and state funding, to continually improve council's efficiency, to form alliances, to consolidate or rationalise assets, and to insert DCPs and ICPs so that contributions from development can be taken to fund necessary infrastructure so that growth pays for growth and costs are not unfairly borne by established communities. While there are challenges ahead for the Shire's asset maintenance, this plan goes a long way to enabling us to meet them. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Whitfield. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak?
Thanks very much, Deputy Madam Mayor. As Councillor Whitfield's mentioned, this is a requirement of the Local Government Act 2020. What I'd like to say, the Asset Plan 2022 to 2032 has been developed based on existing processes, practices, data and standards. The Council is committed to striving towards best asset management practices and is always working to improve knowledge about its assets and enhance the tools used to manage them. As data and systems improve, so too will the analysis and information on which the Asset Plan 2022-2023 is based. It is intended that the Asset Plan 2022 to 2032 should always reflect as closely as possible the actual practices used in managing assets. Only in this way will Council be best able to ascertain the long-term needs of infrastructure. Thank you.
Councillor Rowe. Is there any councillor who'd like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who'd like to speak for? Councillor Sharkey.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. They are a fussy mob, wanting lots of things. This one out of the new Local Government Act. It's a document that is quite surprising. Wasn't something that was a requirement before. And it is pretty exciting document in terms of putting a highlight on an asset. I know last week at the MOV, I think this year there's no Victorian councillors seeked a variation on rates, which is fantastic. But we know the elephant in the room in the coming years is going to be wages will increase, costs will increase, and that rate base will only marginally increase 2%, 1.5% each year. So there will come a point in time when the scales get tipped and the strain is put on councils, and I dare say it's this asset management plan that will be referred to by many councils seeking variations into the future. It was highlighted at the MOV last week that this is the area of concern for many councils. So having this plan put in place here will put pressure on us, will put pressure on the state government to actually have it identified and see future fundings come into asset renewal. So it's an exciting document. It's one of the things that I warmly welcome with those fussy lot wanting more and more. But it's a good document. But it's that's the strain that's ahead of us into the future, most certainly. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Sharkey. Is there any other councillors who'd like to speak for or against the motion? If not, Councillor Whitfield, would you like to sum up?
I'll just very quickly, acknowledging Councillor Sharkey's mentioned the challenges ahead with cost of living and cost of materials and inflation and interest rates. There are difficult times foreseeable, and I think this plan is fantastic because it sets out for the next 10 years and establishes what it is we need to achieve and allows us time to aim towards those achievements. So, yeah, I think it's a great document. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. I will now put the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.8, the removal of 2 dry stone walls under clause 52.33, post boxes and dry stone walls at lot M on plan of subdivision 809696Y. I will ask Director Josipovic to briefly introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This report relates to an application for the removal of 2 dry stone walls within the final stages of Somerset development in Bannockburn. One is on the frontage of McPhillips Road, and the second intersects with this same dry stone wall but runs generally east-west from Bruce's Creek to McPhillips received. The application has been referred to council meeting as it was called in by Councillor Rowe and seconded by Councillor Gamble. The removal of the dry stone walls is required as it is not suited to a residential area, and access to the eastern lots along McPhillips Road is required, and proper re-fencing is required along the northern lots. An archaeological survey was undertaken and submitted with the application. It concluded that the walls are in a state of collapse and deterioration due to loose stones because of the additions of star pickets and wire coupled with the lack of maintenance over time. The application was referred to a heritage advisor, and the final referral response acknowledges that the dry stone wall submitted with the application does not have state heritage significance, nor are they subject to any local heritage controls. The response notes that the walls are likely a legacy of the 19th and early 20th century rural farming development following post-contact European colonisation in Bannockburn. In summary, while acknowledged that the walls do have a level of heritage significance, albeit without any formal recognition, they have also been found to have suffered a level of deterioration over time and have not been maintained well. It is regrettable that this matter was not identified and dealt with at the inception of the estate approvals. However, it does not necessarily follow that the proposed outcome would be any different. The layout of the subdivision reflects the approved development plan, and the final stages are now stifled until this matter is resolved. An alternative layout to the subdivision at this late stage is not possible because these stages are designed to connect with existing infrastructure networks. Associated approvals are in place and civil works are underway. The recommendation before you is that Council resolves to issue a planning permit for the removal of the 2 dry stone walls under clause 52.33, subject to the recommended conditions attached to the report. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Director Josipovic. We now have Cameron Gray joining us virtually to provide a presentation on this item. Thank you, Cameron.
Cameron, can you hear us? Hold on a second. Cameron, can you hear us?
I can now, yes. We're all working. Sorry, I haven't been able to hear. The meeting's been muted, so...
Okay, thank you, Cameron Gray, for joining us virtually tonight. Sorry that you were muted there, but would you like to provide a presentation on this item to our councillor group? Thank you.
I would, just briefly, and as you know, my name's Cameron Gray and I represent the applicant for the permit, and I'd like to thank Council for the opportunity to address this issue. The purpose of what I have to say is just to provide some context, which might not be explicit in the officer report that you all have, around the history and the implications of the removal of this wall, and also to provide an opportunity to possibly retain some connection to the wall on the site. In terms of significance, which is a matter that's addressed in the officer's report, we know that the advice is that the fence is classified D under the Heritage Act. It's not protected under that Act. It's considered regionally common and of local significance only. So this is the view of the heritage consultants, both Council's heritage consultant and our own, as is the view that the removal of the wall is reasonable from a heritage perspective. That's not to say that all dry stone walls merit the same treatment, and we would support Council, as suggested in the officer's report, undertaking, if resources are available, undertaking a review into the significance and treatment of dry stone walls throughout the Shire, so that we can perhaps have a more comprehensive understanding and decision-making process in relation to them. In relation to whether this wall is retained or removed, I think it's important to contemplate what the alternative to removal is. And it's clear that, you know, retention of these fences is one thing when it's in a rural environment, and it's quite another thing when we're talking about an urban environment, and that is what we're talking about in this case. So retention in an urban environment raises a few questions which are difficult to find answers to, and they include the first question about who would own the fence or the wall. So we know it can only be either private property as part of yards or fences, or it can be publicly owned, which is essentially by council as part of a road reserve or some other form of reserve. So both of those models bring their own problems of liability and management. And bearing in mind this wall, as per the photos in the officer's report, is essentially, you know, it's a knee-high pile of rocks, unsecured, no mortar, you know, as is the nature of a dry stone wall. So they're not particularly stable, and you know, by way of example, I suppose a fence that can stand in a paddock undisturbed for decades is unlikely to stand next to a footpath undisturbed, or in an open space reserve undisturbed for any length of time. And we acknowledge that the process around this removal has been a little tricky and less than ideal. Removal of this wall has long been assumed both by council and ourselves as applicants and proponents for this estate. It's been assumed in multiple planning and engineering approvals. I don't think any of these approvals properly considered that there was a permit trigger for removal of the wall. That is, that a permit was actually required. And I don't think there was any doubt in any of those planning and engineering approvals that removal would be able to take place. As soon as we became aware that there was a trigger there, we ceased works in the vicinity of the wall. We applied for the application in front of you. We did that in September last year. That's meant significant delays in delivering these lots to purchasers who have now been waiting many months. Ultimately, if we don't obtain a permit to remove the wall, those purchasers will not get title to their lots at all, as retention of the wall would require a full redesign and reconstruction of that part of the subdivision. You know, contracts will be lost. So the matter's very significant to all stakeholders. In terms of our role, I suppose, we have in the past and continue to address issues of heritage, both European and Aboriginal, on both sides of Bruce's Creek, noting that the west side of Bruce's Creek contains far more significant European heritage sites than this side, and in which are protected. Essentially, Heritage Victoria will have to play a role with those sites on the west. On that basis, and also to hopefully alleviate any concerns council might have, we're more than happy to engage with council officers outside the permit process on relocating and or re-establishing elements of this wall in some form or another in the Bruce's Creek Reserve, whether it's near the basin that's currently under construction or whether it's further along the linear open space. This is not necessary from a heritage perspective, and it'll no doubt take some time and energy to determine the appropriate site and the form that these rocks will ultimately take. We're happy to commit to that process so that elements of the heritage significance are retained on site. So in short, we concur and support the officer's recommendations. It's not an ideal set of circumstances to find ourselves in this position so far down many years, 15 or 16 years into a planning process. But that's where we have found ourselves, and we ask for council's support in this matter. And again, appreciate the opportunity to be heard. Thank you.
Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor Rowe.
Yes, thanks very much, Madam Mayor. Cameron, Councillor Les Rowe here. I was the chap that called this in. I was just wondering, you're taking down, say, 3/4 of a kilometre of dry stone wall. What do you envisage? What sort of meterage do you envisage putting down in the Bruce's Creek area?
Well, that's unclear, Councillor Rowe. What we'd envisage, I mean, there are tonnes and tonnes and tonnes of this dry stone wall, so I would imagine we wouldn't be reconstituting the entire thing. I don't think there'd be space. And I also need to keep in mind, or we all need to keep in mind, I suppose, that the Bruce's Creek area is linear open space, publicly accessible. So whatever form this wall is reconstituted in, it needs to be safe. And that's why I suggest that it's probably going to take some time and effort from both ourselves and council officers to determine what sort of recreational representation of the dry stone wall is most appropriate in that context.
Okay, thank you.
Right, any other questions, councillors? All right, if there's no other questions, is there, thank you, Cameron. Is there any other questions directed to Director Josipovic? No other questions, okay. All right, do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Rowe. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks very much, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to first of all say I originally brought this item to council as a call-in because of my interest in the history of our Shire. These dry stone walls go back to the era of the 1860s to the 1880s. This site is highly significant as it represents early, if not the earliest occupation of land along Bruce's Creek. Dry stone walls do have a local significance at this site, and prior to 2010, when the subdivision permit was agreed by council, I think it needed a more detailed investigation at the time, which wasn't taken up, which reflects poorly on those at the time. Furthermore, after a meeting with the council's heritage advisor, I am happy for the dry stone wall or dry stone walls to be removed. However, a section of the dry stone walling should be included along the Bruce's Creek region with the removal of the stones from McPhillips Road and the western boundary to highlight the local significance of such and the early agricultural activities of this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Cunningham.
Anything else to add there? Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank
Deputy
you.
Mayor.
Is there any councillor who'd like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Whitfield.
Yeah, I suppose I just wanted to add that I'm glad Councillor Rowe called this one in because it highlights potential heritage implications for other areas. Not that we had much choice with this one. The development plan's already created. Yeah, so good move calling it in, Councillor Rowe, and I believe Councillor Gamble supported you in calling it in, so well done to him. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? Against the motion? If not, I'll ask Councillor Rowe if he would like to close the debate.
Well, look, there's not a lot more to say. Just in summing up, I think Cameron's, got what I think is important. So I think down the track, if they can work, if Bannickman Holdings can work with the council and come up with some sort of a dry stone wall in some area down there by the Bruce's Creek, and if the appropriate bronze plaque perhaps can be put on it, just to highlight the significance of the dry stone walls to the area in that period, say from whenever it was 1860 to 1880. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Okay, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you, Cameron, for your time tonight. Thank you. Item 7.9, revoke the citizen recognition policy. Director Sigona, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So in 1999, Council adopted a citizen recognition policy for the purpose of acknowledging the contributions and achievements of Shire citizens. We've recently undertaken just a cyclic or 4-yearly review of that policy, and I suppose in a nutshell found that it doesn't really stand the test these days of good governance practices, transparency, accountability, lacks some procedures and guidelines. And in addition to that, it hasn't really been used by this council for a number of years. And it also duplicates some more recent processes that are more transparent and backed in good governance. So we saw earlier this evening the policy around recognising citizens who take part in state or national level competition. So that one would remain. There's opportunities for recognition of citizens through the Golden Plains Community Awards, and also as part of National Volunteer Week. So it's suggested that the 1999 citizen recognition policy no longer aligns with the principles of good governance. It's obsolete, and the recommendation is that it be revoked.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Whitfield.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Sorry, Director Sigona, question without notice. I've had a look through the newer policy. I was just wondering, how would clubs or individuals know that they can nominate for this recognition?
Do you mean the state?
Yeah. Obviously, there's advertising for the Shire Community Awards, and I'm not too sure how the National Volunteer Week, I suppose Council reaches out to them. But for instance, the two young people we had tonight, how would their clubs or family know that we recognise?
Yes. Sorry, Councillor Whitfield, to interrupt. Now, to date, most of those have come through direct contact with between our rec team and the clubs. So our rec team are constantly working with local sports clubs and have a bit of a feel for what's going on in that regard. But yeah, there's probably a cause for a bit more promotion and awareness raising around that particular opportunity for recognition at state and national level comp. Yeah.
Just following on from that, I do think that there's nothing stopping the councillors within all of your communities to continue to keep your eyes and ears open. And if you do hear of local community members that fit the criteria for being recognized, I know in the last term of council, a number of councillors had through the councillors had put up individuals as well. So, but there's no doubt about it. Through our comms process and the Gazette that goes out, we could have a once every 6 months, just a reminder to community that if you know anyone that's worthy of those significant recognitions, to put forward those applications.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Any other questions, councillors? No, if there's no questions. Councillors, we have a motion before us. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Getson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Getson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Madam Mayor. I've been a recipient of one of these awards in about 2004, I think roughly it was, for the Golden Plains Shire, which is a very proud honour to recognise for community work over many parts of the Shire, of course, and of course over Victoria. So I got a great award which I've got up on my mantelpiece, so which is terrific. Going by what Mr. Sagona has stated, I think it's a great, a different way to look at it, and I happy to move that this movement goes ahead. It doesn't change the aspect that you don't get rewarded, so it's just a different way to approach it.
Thank you, Councillor Getson. Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. So after a review in April 2022, it was recommended that this policy be revoked as it's a bit outdated in terms of good practice and meeting legislation, and duplicates some other policies. And those other policies in place are the policy 5.3, recognition of citizens who take part in state level or above competition, the Golden Plains Shire Council Community Awards, and National Volunteer Week celebrations. So revoking policy 5.5 prevents duplication. The recognition is still available. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? If not, Councillor Getson, would you like to sum up?
No, nothing further, thanks.
Thank you. I'll then put the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.10, Tourism and Service Signage on Roads Policy Update. Councillors, as there are no changes made to this policy, I will take the report in the agenda for this item as read. Unless there are any questions, I will proceed to ask the mover of the officer recommendation. The recommendation is that Council reaffirm and adopt the revised Tourism and Services Signage on Roads policy, noting that no changes have been made to the 2018 policy except for relevant formatting changes. Is there any questions, councillors? No questions, then I will then ask for a mover. Councillor Cunningham. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Whitfield. Councillor Cunningham, would you like to speak?
Madam Deputy Mayor, no, pretty straightforward, I think, and happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Whitfield, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Madam Chair.
Is there any councillor who would like to speak against the motion? For the motion? I'll then put the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.11, review of instruments of delegations. Councillors, as this item is a regular statutory item, I will take the report in the agenda for this item as read. I refer councillors to page 62 of the agenda for the officer recommendation, which is also presented on the screen. Are there any questions, councillors? If not, do I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Would you like to speak, Councillor Whitfield?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I'll move the recommendation as the motion. Look, the review has required some cosmetic changes, a new template for the instrument as required by the legislation, and some updating of personnel in the instrument. The way the delegations work remains the same. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Nothing else to add there, no. It needs to be done. Thanks.
Any councillor would like to speak against the motion? For the motion? If not, I'll put the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 7.12, mayoral attendance at the National General Assembly, Australian Local Government Association 2022. I will then now hand over to CEO Eric Braslis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, as you're aware, every year for I think they said 23 years now, councils and councillors from around the country attend as a delegation in Canberra to what's called the ALGA, so Australian Local Government Association National Forum. As I said, 530 councillors from around the country, and I honestly can say from every corner of the country. There are, from the middle of the outback through to, the every edge of our country, and including Tasmania. This year, over 1,000 delegates came to Canberra for a 4-day session. I know the mayor will be extremely disappointed that he's not here and not able to speak to his view of the conference. I will highlight a few things, but I'm sure he will come back to the councillor group just to better explain how he valued the 4 days away, what he took from that, and he is a far better note taker than I, so he was taking notes throughout the whole of the conference. But I know he found the experience extremely rewarding. I know previous mayors that have attended, Councillor Kirby and Councillor Sharkey, would both, suggest that they too, during their terms, attended this forum and found it rewarding. But I do think for Mayor Gamble, being a first-term councillor, and in his case, the first-time mayor, he found the experience fulfilling and rewarding. The first day, just to give a bit of background, on a Sunday is contained to rural, regional, and remote councils across the country. So the themes of the one day relate more to what happens in rural Australia than it does to metro or urban areas. And that full day session talked about working better together, financial sustainability of councils, emergency management. A lot dealt with floods and fires over the last 12 months, putting all of COVID aside. The remaining 3 days were more strategic and policy related, where we get to hear from speakers and including a number of newly elected MPs, in this case many ministers. We were fortunate to hear from our own local MP, Catherine King, who spoke to the Assembly incredibly in terms of her portfolio, which is probably one of the more significant portfolios of the new government. So, right down to the newly elected local Minister for Local Government, which is a former local government councillor and mayor of Bega Council in New South Wales. So incredibly rewarding. We heard from a number of speakers, both domestically and internationally. The conference, and it's highlighted in the report and the themes that we talked about, but I would ask councillors and community members to have a look at the attached communique, because that's what comes out of the forum at the end, and it highlights some of a number of initiatives, issues, and topics that over the 4 days the ALGA board will try to take up with the new government. One of the most significant things that we heard from government over that period of time was their commitment to local government. This is the federal government basically saying that we've got a lot of faith and we're encouraged by what happens at local government level, and will continue to work strongly with local governments. They didn't go as far as saying how they would deal with the state governments around the country, but they did say the relationship with local governments is paramount in getting things done. And I think, looking back at the last 4 years, putting aside the government over that period of time, initiatives like the local roads and community infrastructure funding, where government felt confident enough to hand over millions of dollars to local councils across the country to get things done. And that was reiterated. I suspect the program has got a commitment, the program has a commitment for another year, but I suspect the new government will refresh that, but have something like that in years to come. But again, the conference, I think, is something that other councillors may wish to think about in the coming years, to possibly attend with the mayor of the day. And I suspect when you do hear from Mayor Gamble when he returns from leave, that he will suggest that into the future. And there's no reason why we can't take more than one delegate. Over a 4-year term of council, if we were to take 2, that would suggest that every councillor would get to see this forum, experience the forum at least once. But again, really rewarding, a long 4 days. It's quite intense. You're moving between forums and different sessions. But again, I'll leave it to the mayor to come back at the next meeting with the councillors to better explain his perception of it. But I suspect he will say he found it extremely rewarding. And as well, the networking that councillors do at those sessions, where they get to hear from other councillors how things are working, aren't working, what we could do better, what we're doing well and need to share with others. So again, highly important part of being a councillor is not only what happens locally, but seeing what happens nationally and then globally. So I'll just put the report to be received and noted on behalf of the mayor, but I'm quite confident he will wish to speak to you all further about it.
Thank you, CEO Brussels. Is there any questions, councillors, for the CEO? As he up there? No other questions? All right, we have a recommendation before us. Does any councillor wish to move the officer's recommendation? Councillor Sharkey. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cunningham. Would you like to speak, Councillor Sharkey?
Yeah, thank you very much. Madam Mayor, I don't think there's much more to add than that big, long speech there by the CEO on that one, and definitely went over these 3 minutes there. But no, very detailed, and fully support all the comments made on that one. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair.
Councillor Cunningham.
No, nothing else to add there, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against the motion? Any councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? If not, I will put the vote. All those in favour? Carried. And we look forward to actually hearing from Mayor Gamble's speech when he returns at the next council meeting, so we can be fully informed of what happened up there. So thank you, Mayor Gamble. Notices of motion, the environmentally significant overlays. Councillors, we have 2 notices of motion listed on the agenda for consideration tonight. However, these items have been withdrawn prior to the meeting as Mayor Gamble is an apology this evening. These items may be considered at a future meeting. Sorry, CEO, I said that. We have no petitions or items of urgent business to consider tonight. We do have confidential reports for decision. There are confidential items for consideration tonight. These items are considered confidential as defined in Section 3 of the Local Government Act. Can I have a councillor to move the recommendation to move into closed session? Councillor Cunningham. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rowe. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I will now ask members of the gallery to leave the meeting so the meeting can move into a closed session, and the live stream will cease at this time. And we thank everyone for joining us tonight for our council